Welcome everyone to Wrasslin Raw!
You're listening to Wrasslin Raw, the podcast that takes you back to when the World Wrestling Federation developed a little bit of an attitude. Thank you for joining us. You're here with Ryan Arico.
Congratulations, guys. This is our 100th episode.
It is.
And I'm so excited. I'm erupting with pleasure.
Are you getting a rise?
Joe Giammatteo.
What he said right there was very deranged.
I'm the one and only Jason Bartlett. We're going to examine WWE history one episode of Raw at a time. But first, that wasn't no shitting. This is our 100th episode. Just briefly, guys, and I got a better question for you afterwards, but what do you think? We've been at it 100 times so far.
Yeah, it's hard to believe. It doesn't feel like it. It's flown by.
I agree. It's been 2 years already, and it certainly doesn't feel like 2 years. It doesn't feel like we've been doing it that long. So,
especially we've only got about 27 more years of Raw left to do.
That's right.
Something like that.
Yep. Well past my date of expiration. Hopefully, you'll both be recording this over my grave someday.
We all know what that gravestone will say.
Yeah, and you know what? Just to let the listeners in on this, I got my balls busted a little bit over my statement about Marty Jannetty. As a matter of fact, there was an isolated sound clip sent through the podcast texting thread repeatedly of me saying that shit about Jannetty, so I got what I deserved. No regrets.
Yes.
You asked for it.
Well, guys, I came up with a question that I have been thinking a lot about. It's something that we get back to during our discussions quite a bit, not so much lately, and I'm sure you'll realize why once we get to the topic at hand. But it's a limited pool to pick from, to be sure, but in our WWF viewing so far, so limited to the WWF and limited to what we have watched so far, 93 to the present, or 96, I should say. Who do you think has been the best tag team and why? Not your favorite, but the best.
Ryan, you want to talk about PG-13? Go ahead.
It is not PG-13s, shockingly. But, we've had a lot of non-tag teams, which I mean a bunch of single guys, slapped together. So I'm going to pick actual tag team here. And I think the Smoking Guns, is we have a very limited pool, like you said, Bartlett, so far in our viewing. But I think as far as actual tag team work and maneuvers done in the ring, I think it's got to go to the Smoking Guns.
Yeah, very limited pool, and the tag team division has been just awful since we started. I guess not including the Steiner brothers, we did see a little bit of them, but not enough. I would say the Smoking Guns as well, just because we've seen a lot of improvement from them. Because I think when we first saw them, it was just like, they're okay.
Drugstore cowboys.
Yes. But I think that they have elevated themselves to tag team superstars.
Yeah. While that is not my answer, I do agree with all of your reasoning behind that, both of you. The Smoking Guns have definitely become the cream of the crop as far as the tag team division goes. You wouldn't know it right now with the way things have been going, but my personal answer is the Heavenly Bodies. I think that they helped to prop up.
No shocker.
They helped to prop up the division during a very, very lean time. I don't have any fact behind this, but I would dare say that if it weren't for the Heavenly Bodies giving a teensy bit of fresh blood in those sparse years, we would maybe not have a tag team division in 1996 at all, because they sure as fuck did not care about it and did not push it.
You don't think the Executioners could have held it down?
No, I don't think Executioners could have held it down. I don't think Money Inc. could have held it down. I don't think the Head Shrinkers could have held it down. There's a whole list, and this is what got me thinking about this question to ask you guys, because there are a ton of tag teams that have come through. None of them are memorable, which is a major problem. And none of them stuck around long enough to maybe become memorable or to even carve out their own little niche. And that's just kind of fucked up, I think.
Techno Team 2000.
Yes, exactly.
Well, and like Joe said, if we got to watch a little bit earlier and seen the Steiners, they probably would have taken it. But we really just caught them at the tail end right before they left. So
the Quebecers? Nobody wants to throw the Quebecers out there?
Well, as much shit as we talk on the Quebecers, they were huge in Canada. Like, those two guys are major stars in Canada, so at least.
And it's one of those things, it's like, you talk shit when you have them in front of you, but we would kill for them now.
Oh, absolutely.
In this tag team division.
Well, don't worry, we've got the New Rockers coming up soon.
Yes.
To fill in that Quebecers hole in our hearts, because they're about the same, really. We're going to be bitching about them, too, I'm sure. All right, yeah, like I said, it's just tag teams have been on my mind, especially with the tag team tournament going on here in 1996 that we will hopefully get some updates on here in our episode. What do you think? Let's get to it. In this episode of Wrasslin Raw, we're going to be talking about the Raw that aired on March 4th, 1996. This Raw was recorded at the Cincinnati Gardens in Cincinnati, Ohio, and features Vince McMahon and Jerry the King Lawler on commentary. Are you guys ready?
I'm ready.
Ready.
All right, then let's get into it.
The wait is finally over. Revealed tonight. The destiny of the Ultimate Warrior.
I added a couple pulses to the Ultimate there. Some artistic license, but Vince was very excited about this. And hold on to your bagpipes. Bagpipes. Goldust will be here in a film set in Piper's Pit. He's a billionaire, and you won't believe his obnoxious, sexist, racist remarks tonight on TV Trivia. 3 guesses as to who that is referencing.
No clue.
And tonight, both participants of the upcoming Iron Man match have begun training and will be in action. And this was a neat little video package, wasn't it? Just a short little training kind of vignette.
Kind of reminded me of Rocky.
Yeah. Short, very short, but memorable nonetheless. And we are not fucking around anymore as we go into our first match of the night. The Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Micheals, defeats the 1-2-3 Kid with the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase, by pinfall in 4 minutes and 5 seconds. The 1-2-3 Kid has hit jobber status, I think, now, as he's already in the ring and waiting without an entrance as we kick this off with Shawn Micheals' 45-minute-long entrance. That's an exaggeration, but not by much. In an amazing bit of variety here, I thoroughly enjoyed this. The 1-2-3 Kid attempts an attack during Shawn's entrance while Shawn is in the ring dancing and stripping, only for Shawn to effortlessly throw the 1-2-3 Kid over the top rope without missing a beat of the striptease and then getting right back into it. That was a great little spot. I loved Shawn Micheals making fun of the 1-2-3 Kid's karate stance. It's something that I do in my mind every time I see the Kid do it. The Kid has a couple nice moves, holding Shawn Micheals in a headlock and running up the ring post in the corner to execute a combination of bulldog and headlock. This looked good. The spinning heel kick from the Kid to Micheals looked fantastic. And this leads to a sequence of quick, tight arm drag takedowns from Micheals onto the Kid, ending with Micheals putting the Kid into a full military press, which, even considering how much smaller the Kid is than your average wrestler, this was fucking impressive. And this then gets somewhat ruined for me as we cut to split screen to see Bret Hart watching this match in what I am assuming is the locker room there. Thankfully, it doesn't last long, but the banter between Bret and Vince just wasn't good. Certainly wasn't worth interrupting this match for. Back in the ring, Micheals' tilt-a-whirl power slam onto the Kid looked great. The Kid hits Michaels with another spinning heel kick as Michaels is coming off the ropes, this time with a little more oomph and elevation to it, which is followed by the Kid giving Michaels a missile drop kick to put Michaels out of the ring. Another great sequence there. Then we go again to split screen, but get out of it, thankfully, in time to see the 1-2-3 Kid hit Michaels on the outside with a splash from the top turnbuckle. Once again, it looked great. A lot of good-looking stuff going on in this match, folks. But then it's back to split screen, and this back and forth was honestly starting to take me out of the match momentum. There had to have been enough time for at least 2 10 counts before Michaels finally gets back into the ring after that splash. And in what is a piece of amazing work, the Kid whips Michaels to the corner, follows it up with another great-looking missile drop kick, and as the Kid hits the mat, Michaels sells the drop kick while stepping over the Kid and without tripping, but maintaining a look that is perfectly natural for somebody that just got kicked in the face with a bit of professional flair. Great professional fucking stuff to watch. We cut to commercial on a 2 count, with the Kid pinning Michaels, and come back to the Kid continuing to work on Michaels with a running leg drop and a headlock, which prompts the comeback. While the comeback does get stalled by a reversal, the false comeback looks fantastic. The Kid throwing Michaels to the ropes, Michaels catching the leg when the Kid attempts a kick, but unable to block as the Kid brings his other leg up, another solid kick to Michaels, another perfect sell from Michaels, and a perfect desperate scramble across the mat from the Kid to attempt to secure the pinfall, which ends in a 2 count. And this is where Michaels' comeback hits in earnest, taking full control and turning the speed up to 11 as he whips the Kid around, moonsaults him, scoop slams him. After a great-looking elbow drop, Michaels sets the Kid up for the sweet chin music, but the Kid dodges, running out of the ring and climbing back in, only to turn on Michaels while Shawn is pursuing, gaining the upper hand again, but that doesn't last. As the Kid attempts a big leg drop from the top rope, Shawn reverses it by sitting up out of the prone position, sets up the sweet chin music again, but this time hits it and immediately takes the pin and the 3 counts. Once again, in a somewhat weird turn, Shawn brings a little kid up into the ring to dance with him. This girl couldn't have been any more than 8 or 9 years old, but thankfully the hip gyrating was kept to a bare minimum, and relativistically speaking here, the dancing didn't last too long. So, guys, I thought this was a phenomenal match that felt much longer than just over 4 minutes. It was fast, it was clean, it was tight, and it was everything that I look for in a wrestling match. Not to mention just overall a fantastic way to open the episode. Ryan, what did you think of our show opener?
Yeah, in complete agreement there. Just a great way to start this episode of Raw off. You have, 2 members of the clique here, and they don't disappoint. I mean, from the moment, not the moment, Shawn Michaels takes his time getting into the ring, and I, too, loved the Kid going after him, and the way Michaels just tosses him out, and, nope, I'm not done with my strip yet, and he just continues. And then you also pointed out him making fun of his karate, but I want to really highlight it in that Shawn Michaels did the crane kick from Karate Kid to make fun of the Kid. So that was just an extra rub in the face, I thought, using the Karate Kid, calling him a little kid, basically. So I thought that was some good stuff there. The 1-2-3 Kid, he starts off with some really impressive looking high flying kicks. The only thing that took me out of it was after every successful move he completed, he stopped to do the 2 sweet pose. I mean, it was like 9 times during this match he did the 2 sweet pose, and it was always like he'd kick and then immediately into 2 sweet. So that was a little bit distracting, as was the split screen with Bret Hart. Thankfully, that was also kept relatively short. You mentioned that power slam that Michaels gave to the Kid, and I thought that was probably one of the best looking spots in the match. It just, from both sides, the Kid sold it, and the way that Michaels landed it, I thought it was really impressive looking. I guess this shouldn't really be much of a surprise. This is kind of what we called last week, like, hey, look, we got some great people wrestling, so it's going to be tough to make these bad matches, and they didn't disappoint. This was a fun match to watch. You said it was only 4 minutes. I'm shocked by that because in a good way, it felt much longer. Felt like they were able to get a lot of maneuvers packed into those 4 minutes. And there was really no slow point in this match. In a good fashion, when you have two lightweights fighting, the match, instead of getting slower and then building up to a finish, the pace picked up through the match. Like it just kept on getting faster and faster until the end. It was almost every move was a fly off the top rope or some high risk maneuver. So I had a hell of a lot of fun watching this match and really loved it.
Yeah, Shawn Micheals and the 1-2-3 Kid in 1996 are fully capable of a 5-star match. I don't know if this was a 5-star match, but if it wasn't, it was pretty damn close. Like you guys, hard to believe that it was only 4 minutes long. It definitely seemed longer than that, and not a bad thing. That's a good thing that it seemed longer than that. I guess it's with Shawn tossing the Kid out and then continuing his stripping. That must be a regular thing now for him because he did that to Owen Hart too, not that long ago. And yeah, it's pretty funny. And I also kind of like the goofy stuff that Shawn does before the match really starts, doing the crane kick stuff, and that kind of reminds me of like the DX version of Shawn Micheals. So yes. I like that. I'm in the minority here. I loved Bret Hart watching the monitor in the back. I liked the small amount of banter between him and Vince. I am a big fan of the Iron Man match. I also remember being a big fan of the build-up to it. So seeing this type of stuff, I enjoy. The art of selling during this match is really on display. Both guys are just selling their asses off, doing a great job. I loved the Kid dodging the sweet chin music. I thought that was great. I don't know if we've seen anybody really do that before. So again, seeing little things that we haven't really seen before was really nice here. And Shawn Micheals is this is what I like to see out of a push for Shawn Micheals. Not the bullshit we were seeing in the fall where we're talking about Syracuse thugs and musical tributes and him almost dying and all this shit. This is the kind of stuff that I like. With him and Bret preparing for this match, this is what I like to see.
Yeah, completely agreed with that, and especially with your point about building up the match. This is just so much more of an effective way to get Shawn Micheals over, or should I say, to allow Shawn to get himself over without the rest of that just dramatic bullshit. And also, I was curious to see if either of you guys would mention it, but no shenanigans in this. This was a straight match, clean finish. Something that I was very, very happy to see. It made me think of a shoot interview that I listened to recently, and I can't remember who exactly said it, if it was Pritchard or JR or Cornette or one of the old school guys, talking about Vince McMahon's preferences in wrestling and how Vince doesn't like wrestling per se, he prefers entertainment, which is why you get the split screen with Bret, because that's part of the storytelling as opposed to the match, and that's why we see so much storytelling affect the matches, because for Vince, the match is secondary to the story. And it was just very, very awesome to see a match that was, from start to finish, still perpetuating the story, still keeping Micheals up front in our minds and highlighted before us, but also to just not have that clutter of story being hammered at us like we sometimes get. All right. Speaking of, and that's not a negative thing in the least bit, but some heavier storytelling, we'll say. Now a Shattered Dreams production. 24 Karat Pictures presents a Marlena movie, Goldust in Piper's Pit. And this has a special notation at the bottom of the screen saying that it was edited for television. And just the font on it and everything kind of looked like that was part of the original broadcast and not necessarily something that Peacock added. Do you guys have thoughts on that?
We're sorry. We had to remove one of the boner references. There was just one too many.
It put it into TVMA territory.
Yes.
This vignette is Goldust wearing a kilt on top of his vinyl suit, which I thought was great. And that was definitely the Piper's Pit set. Marlena was looking amazing in this, like she always does. And what else was amazing was the dialogue that Goldust was delivering. It had me popping my ass off. Just some highlights of that. This is not going to be line for line, but Mr. Piper, when you exploded that coconut off of one Superfly's head, I erupted in pleasure. And, oh yes, we mustn't forget that skirt. In reference to the quilt, or, the fucking Scottish skirt thing. I forget the name of it already.
The kilt, not the quilt.
The quilt. Oh my God. I need to have more coffee. It's been a rough day.
I think this is getting you all, this Goldust movie is getting you hot and bothered. Yeah.
Well, it's because of what's coming.
Are you getting a rise?
I would absolutely encourage anybody that likes Goldust to go back and watch this. I loved every second of it, and the best part was, of course, it had to end with Goldust pervertedly sucking and blowing on a set of bagpipes. What this all amounts to, in the grand scheme of things, is it seems like Goldust, for some reason, in quotes, is moving away from taunting Razor Ramon and moving on to taunting Roddy Piper. There is much more Raw to come. Following the Goldust vignette, we move into the road to WrestleMania. This means plenty of non-wrestling footage of the Ultimate Warrior. You know, Ryan, since you said that, I can't unsee it now. There was no wrestling footage of the Ultimate Warrior.
No, there was a clothesline.
Yeah. Unless you want to count pinfalls. They did give us a couple of those. Mainly the one with him just like standing with his foot on Macho Man. But now, after a great deal of speculation, all of which generated by Vince McMahon, I might point out, it is confirmed that the Ultimate Warrior will be returning to the WWF at WrestleMania. And that's where this segment ends. So let's get some comments on the Goldust vignette as well as the confirmed return of the Ultimate Warrior. Ryan, please take it first.
Starting with Goldust here, I also really enjoyed this, starting off with him in Piper's Pit, clearly in Piper's Pit with that kilt on, and you could hear that vinyl stretching every time he moved. Yes. It was fantastic. And on top of that, why I think we heard the vinyl was they finally had Goldust mic'd up properly, and we could understand every perverted word that came out of his mouth. It was crystal clear in this video, finally, because there's been a lot of times where we could barely hear what he's saying because it's muffled, but that was not the case here. We heard it all, and I'm thankful for that. I'm not going to go over much of what he said, Bartlett. You kind of covered the highlights here, but safe to say, I thought this was great. He did a really good job with it. And the Ultimate Warrior video, I summed it up last week. A bunch of him screaming, no wrestling, and yay, Ultimate Warrior's coming.
Yeah, the Goldust, I guess Marlena maybe should be in the running for Director of the Year for this at the Academy Awards. I like the concept of it. I didn't really love it. I thought it was just a little too creepy, I think. It just, he's coming off as a serious sexual predator. And it's kind of just, I don't know. It's just strange. It's a little too much for me, I think. I do think the bagpipes, the stuff with the bagpipes was pretty funny. But all these boner references, I don't know. Maybe they can get a little bit more clever with it, but it's just a little too much. I don't know. There's just something about it that I just didn't really like. I just watched it and didn't really laugh, but hearing you guys talk about it is funny.
I laughed quite a bit.
Yeah, see, I didn't. I don't know why.
You're too mature.
I don't know. No, I'm not, because I love the whoopee cushion farting noises. The Warrior video, what? I don't know. We're watching videos from fucking 8 years ago. It's just strange.
Yeah. You said something that makes me wonder, and because you're absolutely right. Goldust comes across as a legitimate sexual predator here. Ryan, why is that so entertaining to us?
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe that says something terrible about us.
Yeah, I mean, it might.
But I thought it was fucking hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not like offended by it. I just, for some reason, I don't think it's that funny. I think parts of it, like with him sucking on the bagpipe thing, was pretty.
And like I said with the vinyl, I think that added to it because after every perverse thing he said, he'd move, and then you just hear that like stretching of the vinyl sound. I don't know, kind of reminded me of almost the Gimp from Pulp Fiction, you know?
Something that's also kind of makes me wonder is I'm still excited about the return of the Ultimate Warrior, even though everything that I know intellectually tells me that I shouldn't be.
Do you know the Hunter match?
I know of it. I've never seen, or at least it's been a very, very long time since I've seen it.
You know what's going to happen then?
Yeah.
And you're still excited?
As of right now, yes.
Okay.
I reserve the right to change that opinion in the future.
All right. I was just asking a question.
I am looking forward to like the reaction to him. Like, yes. I know that this run is obviously
I agree
bad,
with that. Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to seeing like what the reaction, and not just WrestleMania, but like going forward too, how his reaction, because you know that's really what was so exciting about the Warrior was the crowd reaction to him,
the energy.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like, I don't know. To me, at this point, though, it's like getting excited to, you're coming up on a train wreck. Make sure you look. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
Well, time will tell on that, and I'm sure time will tell us that it's a fucking train wreck, but we'll just have to wait and see. Let's go now into our next match. Justin Huck Bradshaw defeats Hakushi by pinfall in 4 minutes and 13 seconds. As Hakushi is coming down to the ring, we're going to get a whole bunch of shit thrown at us here that has nothing to do with the match that is already starting. This includes a graphic of the upcoming match that has already started, Hakushi and Justin Bradshaw, with Justin Bradshaw apparently being managed by either Dirty Dutch Mantel or Uncle Zebekiah, who was the former manager of the Blue Brothers. At this point here, we did not have word yet as to which he would be billed as. Also, Roddy Piper is on the phone. There's more action to come. There's TV trivia with the Huckster. There's Sonny in a bikini rollerblading and apparently guest hosting the Action Zone this Saturday. And there's a video package highlighting the fact that The Undertaker and Yokozuna will apparently be tag team partners in a match against Owen Hart and the British Bulldog next week on Raw. Hopefully Yokozuna has gotten over his fear of The Undertaker and the casket by then. But then again, I guess The Undertaker doesn't have the casket anymore, does he?
No, Diesel destroyed it.
Well, hopefully Yoko can use his newfound grasp of the English language to appropriately communicate his fears and concerns to The Undertaker, and then work effectively through it. Finally, after all of that, we are back in the ring, only to get a view then of Doc Hendricks. He's up there on this platform thing with the G.E. Smith House Band to play the entrance music for Justin Bradshaw. Doc isn't actually doing anything up there, aside from just having a little cocaine jam all by himself.
This entrance was pretty badass.
Yeah, it was.
It sounded like a Pantera song.
Yes, it did. But Bradshaw, he looked good coming down to the ring. And then I did hear the ring announcer, name the manager as Uncle Zebekiah. Vince calls Bradshaw a throwback to the old Stan Hansen, which is something that I've heard Pritchard say this was pretty much just a complete knockoff of Stan Hansen. And at the time of watching this episode, I could not hear that as a compliment, especially when we're talking about the new generation constantly. Even though this guy is a new, younger person, why are we throwing a gimmick on him that is very, very old? Now let's cut to interim President Roddy Piper on the phone. And, as per the usual with this, I couldn't really divide my attention, but the action in the ring looked very stiff and looked good. Bradshaw was giving us a good showing for his first time on Raw. This was not his in-ring debut that happened on Superstars. But this is his first time for us on Raw, He ends up reversing a dropkick from Hakushi, kicking Hakushi in the back while Hakushi is down, and then just relentlessly staying on the offensive. This ends up at the outside with Bradshaw picking Hakushi up and slamming him repeatedly off the ring apron. That looked great. And besides one great-looking sequence, Hakushi never really gets ahead of steam, and Bradshaw is able to hit that great-looking lariat clothesline that he becomes famous for to secure the pin and the 3 counts. Things aren't over, though, as Bradshaw hog-ties Hakushi in the ring, and Uncle Zebekiah pushes the branding iron that he was carrying into Hakushi's arm, leaving what is very obviously an ink stamp impression on Hakushi that says J-B. And that's where this match segment ends. I thought it was great to see yet another strong debut. And the added bonus here is that in this case, this strong debut is for somebody that we know to be a name that will stick around and give us a lot of good wrestling to come in the future. Joe, please get us started on this match.
I guess there's a few things to talk about here. We had the Sunny rollerblading, and aside from Sunny being just a very attractive woman, I remember her being a great host or co-host for some of those Saturday morning wrestling shows. I think that it was a good fit for her back then. So I guess, that's exciting. She's going to be doing that on Saturday on Mania. I know they had those other shows. What were they called? Like Live Wire, I think was one, and Action Zone or whatever.
And didn't they have a Saturday night something?
Shotgun Saturday night.
Shotgun, yeah.
Yeah, but I remember watching those shows with her on them. She was actually really good in that role as a co-host. Much better than Stephanie Wyand, that's for sure.
I always remember watching her when I would come home from church with my dad. I mean, it probably wasn't the proper time to be watching Sunny, but
Yeah, like the Sunday morning shows.
Mm-hmm,
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So we are seeing the Raw debut of a wrestling legend, JBL. Or what was he known as in the APA? Just Bradshaw?
Just Bradshaw.
Was that his name?
Yeah.
I mean, this guy is a big, burly Texas guy. So I think the gimmick really fits him well. I mean, the gimmick is a little goofy, but it fits him well, I think, with his look. The match was pretty good. I think he made a pretty strong debut. Like Ryan mentioned, that song that he got with them playing him in was really cool. Piper on the phone, I didn't really care too much about it, to be honest. I know he was talking about Goldust and his mind games and all that stuff, but I was trying not to really pay attention to it that much. The branding, obviously you're not going to brand a guy on television or just at all, because it's going to hurt really
and
bad.
Cause need for plastic surgery.
Yes. So Hakushi, no selling this branding. I guess they're making it clear that, okay, it's just a stamp. It's kind of like how the NWO used to spray paint people. It's just kind of the same thing, but they didn't really sell it like that. I don't know. It's kind of a cool thing, but they're not really, we'll see what they do with it later on, because they're not really selling it like it's kind of a joke.
It's one of those things. It's like, well, could you ever make it believable? Because they're out here wrestling a match, and unless we're going to break the laws of thermodynamics here, it's not going to still be hot by the time they brand him with it, even if they just took it out of the fire right before they came down. So I guess it has to be ink, right?
Well, yeah, and they should just make that clear. If he's going, if it's just a stamp, then he needs to be laughing about it and not being serious, they're actually branding this guy, because we know they're not.
Right.
Those are pretty much all my thoughts on it.
When he first came down, so I didn't know that he's already debuted on Superstars at this point, but when Bradshaw was first coming down, I'm thinking in my head, is he going to be a possible jobber of the week? because we haven't had any build up to him. No vignettes, no promos. We had no clue that Bradshaw, the cowboy from Texas, was showing up tonight. So I thought he was just showing up as a jobber. But by the time it ended, I was almost ready to do Hakushi as jobber of the week because he got absolutely squashed here. I mean, I'm not saying it in a I guess terrible way. Outside of, it seems like it was just a few short months ago, Hakushi was giving the current champ a run for his money. But now he's just getting annihilated by this newcomer. I don't want to take away from the match, though, because Bradshaw did a very good job of coming out here and just looking like a mean fucking big-ass Texan that's ready to kick some ass. And that's what he did. He just manhandled Hakushi left and right. And every time Hakushi started to even get a tiny bit of momentum, he got a little bit together and then he went for his patented drop kick and Bradshaw just brushes it off and then kicks him in the back. I mean, he just met everything Hakushi had and just threw it right back at him. Hakushi landed his impressive looking flip over the top rope. It affected Bradshaw temporarily, but then he picks up Hakushi and just starts ramming him into the ring, and it looked great. Some of it looked a little stiffer than probably Hakushi would have liked it, but I thought it was a good-looking match, even if it was to the detriment of Hakushi here, because he definitely got buried and made to look like a jobber. But Bradshaw, I'm not sure at all where he actually goes from here. I know we're not far away from Bradshaw coming in and making a bigger name for himself, but I don't know anything about this Texas gimmick he had. I don't remember it at all, so I'm not sure it even lasts that long. But the match itself was very entertaining, and I think it did, I guess, what they wanted to do, which was make Bradshaw look good.
Yeah, it's funny that I didn't really remember this much either, but one of the first things that I thought of whenever I saw it was how many Texas Southern gimmicks are we going to have here? Because we have the Smoking Guns, we've got Bradshaw now, Stone Cold isn't that far off, and I mean, he's, the Texas Rattlesnake. So, I don't know. I've been trying to remember without, going down the rabbit hole, trying to remember Bradshaw's career path. Doesn't he eventually wind up in a tag team, the New Blackjacks?
Yeah.
I forget who he's in that. Was it Blackjack Mulligan? No. But Barry Windham, that's who it was. He winds up in a tag team with Barry Windham, I think. But anyway, yeah, he'll kind of do a Bob Holly thing for a little bit. He'll bounce around and eventually find his footing, but strong debut.
The thing that I remember him from is once he becomes the Acolytes with Farouk. That's what I remember him from. And then, of course, he goes off to the races after that.
Speaking of off to the races, we have another Mankind vignette here. What kind of man could do this? Only Mankind can be this evil. Once again, just a twisted, demented Mankind vignette, and this time this ends with the information that no one will have a nice day. This has been escalating. We've talked in the past, past few episodes of Wrasslin Raw about how Mankind has been switching between being tortured, between being cerebral, and the common theme amongst all of these vignettes seems to be that they are escalating. And that's really all I have to say about it here in my breakdown. I know we praise this every week, so I doubt that really much has changed here, but I do have to ask, just briefly, Joe, what did you think of our weekly installment of Mankind?
Well, like you said, it's elevating. At this point, I'm kind of getting antsy. It's sort of peaking for me. I want to see
ready to
him
erupt,
come out and interrupt a match or have a match. Something that's going to show me why this guy is so deranged and not just hear it every week in a video.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of agree with you, Joe. I'm ready to see him, but if memory is serving me here, I still think we maybe have a month. I think it's after WrestleMania before we actually get to see Mankind, unfortunately. But these vignettes are still done really, really well. We talked about how a couple weeks ago he had a very cerebral message, and then last week's was tormented. And I thought this one did a good job. It was a little mixture of the both. It was tormented and cerebral. And like you both said, kind of ended with this, like it's coming to a crescendo, how no one is going to have a nice day. So very excited to see where it's going, obviously.
Yeah, complete agreement with that. I want to say that his in-ring debut is the Raw after WrestleMania.
That sounds right.
I don't know if he maybe does any run-ins or anything like that before that, but his official Ring the Bell debut is that Raw, I'm pretty sure. All right, well, that will take us into our final match of the night. Bret, the Hitman Hart, defeats Hunter Hurst Helmsley by submission in 10 minutes and 31 seconds. This time, for this match, Hunter is accompanied to the ring by Emerald Hart, who was a penthouse model during this era, but unfortunately I wasn't able to find a ton of information to go along with that. I know she made the January 96 cover, but other than that, no idea. But before we can enjoy the match, we have to visit the merch store with Doc Hendricks.
Handsome Doc Hendricks.
Handsome Doc Hendricks, that is true. Very attractive model is there selling an authentic WWF WrestleMania XII folding chair, a padded folding chair, no less. That's $80 plus shipping and handling. Just real quick, guys, I mean, there's no way I could justify that purchase. Could either of you?
No.
No.
Did they do that creepy thing again where they said that the girl is not for sale this week? Or
I don't think so. If they did, I didn't hear it.
I couldn't remember.
That's a petting zoo thing, not a Hendricks thing.
Okay. All right. Yeah, handsome Doc Hendricks wouldn't do that.
That's right.
Yeah, I agree. $80. Fuck that.
Well, and if you both remember, we were just a couple rows behind getting one of those seats at the Invasion episode or pay-per-view we talked about last week, because we were row 11, I think is.
We were one row off of Gold Circle.
Yeah, we were one row off of getting one of those free seats. So we only paid $70, and I think it was $300 for the seats right in front of us.
Yeah, I think it was Gold Circle was considered rows 1 through 8, and we were row 9.
There you go. And yeah, we had damn good seats though, thanks to my dad working at Giant Eagle there and getting those early Ticketmaster tickets.
Well, thankfully, the distraction here doesn't last that long as we go back to the ring for Bret Hart's entrance. And we get a very funny and heartwarming quick video. Apparently last week at a house show, Bret gave his glasses to a little girl at ringside who then completely broke down, sobbing and crying and saying, "Thank you, Bret." I got a heartfelt chuckle out of that. That was a very touching little thing they added there. As the match gets going, both competitors are here to work, and they start off doing a damn good job of it. The work here isn't flashy. We are seeing mostly basic holds and moves, but damn, they are being sold perfectly on both sides. There was nothing about this that looked worked or fake. Every single move that these guys were putting on each other at the start of this match looked real, and I loved it. But then Shawn Micheals comes out, carrying a folding chair, and seats himself at the outside to watch the match. I got a little skeptical about things there. We break to commercial and get a petting zoo voiceover advertising the current WWF tour, all venues in Texas. I am sure we will get an update on that later whenever it travels around the country. We come back to the match to find Bret Hart still in control. And while the ongoing camera angle over Shawn's shoulder to watch the match is certainly distracting, it doesn't change the fact that the work in the ring remains solid. Once Bret gets thrown out of the ring, however, the distraction becomes more concrete as Bret chooses to argue with Shawn over Shawn's presence rather than get back in the ring. Obviously, Hunter will try to take advantage of that distraction, but Bret is able to counter that, do some additional damage to Hunter at the outside, and then put himself and Hunter back in the ring. Once again, I have to note how great the work looks on both ends of this. The working punches, the whips to the corner, all of it worked and sold immaculately. But that repeated camera angle from over Shawn's shoulder was taking me out of it. We break for commercial once again to come back to Hunter leaping from the top rope, but the Hitman reverses him with a boot to the face. Both men end up outside the ring again, highlighting Shawn's presence once again. But the highlight of this sequence for me was Hunter Hurst Helmsley scooting backwards across the mat towards the corner, doing the cowardly heelish act of trying to get away from Bret Hart, only to really be luring Bret Hart in. Once Bret Hart's within range, Hunter kicks him in the gut at the most perfect moment. Once again, this was not a big flashy move, but it made sense. It was effective. It looked fantastic. Just as great looking was Hunter's attempt at a missile dropkick from the top rope, only for Bret to dodge. Bret then immediately capitalizes with the sharpshooter for the submission. Shawn then takes his chair and leaves, applauds Bret on his way out, and that's seemingly the end of that. It's the end of the match. So, guys, this was our final match of the night, but this was not the end of Monday Night Raw, and I have to say it was a pretty great match all around, with the exception of the constant camera view over Shawn Micheals' shoulder. I didn't care for that, but I did like Shawn being there. I liked him playing the mind games. I did not like quite how his presence changed the presentation of what was an immaculately worked match, but that's just quibbling at this point. Ryan, please, what did you think of our final match?
I think I'm pretty much in agreement with a lot of what you said here, because I thought this was an absolutely fantastic match to end Raw with. These two guys, you know what it reminded me of? Every local, or not local, but every small-time house show or at the Newcastle High School, it reminded me of the final match of any of those shows. It was just two of the best guys you've got in your roster just going at it. Nothing flashy, just everything they did was solid. There was no botched moves. They were selling for each other just fantastically, and the timing was perfect. You know, the first match we had of the night with Shawn Micheals and the 1-2-3 Kid, I thought was a great way to start it off with these just high-flying, just great, entertaining wrestlers. This match reminded me of just, it's like the wrestler's wrestler match is what this was. Yeah. You know, and I don't have a ton of spots in this match to actually point out. I really loved how much of the chicken shit heel that Hunter did. I mean, he did it to a T. The way you said how he was doing the quickly scooting back to set Bret up for the playing possum type move. Everything they did just felt right. And, you know, Hunter, he's not far away from his fall from grace. But as of right now, he's still high up there. And this match with Bret Hart, you know, it's nothing I remember because it's just some random Raw match. But I thought this was really good. And if we could have put a few more minutes on this, this could have been a pay-per-view match as far as I'm concerned. But I do agree with you that the over the Shawn Micheals shoulder view, it took it down a notch. If we could have just got rid of that. I liked his interaction with this match, and I thought it was better than a split screen, but one too many times they went over his shoulder, and we missed some good wrestling because of that view. And that was a little bit annoying. One thing that I thought was pretty hilarious was Lawler says, and I don't know if this was just him being a dick because they don't really like each other, but when he said they're just pretending to like each other, in the back, they really hate each other's guts. When he said that, I'm like, are they already starting to have some arguments and some skiffs backstage? Or was this just Lawler throwing out some shit that in the future becomes very true? So I had to laugh at that point, but outside of that, this was just a classic match and a fantastic way to end Raw.
Well, it didn't end Raw, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Wrestling-wise.
Yeah, I think this match, much like the first one between Shawn Michaels and the 1-2-3 Kid, it served its purpose perfectly because, you know, this is all part of the storytelling for this 60-minute Iron Man match. And it's Shawn Michaels and Bret Hart on this episode of Raw sort of displaying what they can do against some of the best guys on the roster. To display that, yes, these guys can wrestle each other for an hour and it's going to entertain you because look at what they can do against these guys. Having them both somewhat involved in each other's match is also great. I think, again, this is what I want to see out of a Shawn Michaels push, not the bullshit that we were getting a few months ago. And no Diesel, no friendship, none of that bullshit. Like, this is good storytelling. And I think they said next week they're in San Antonio, so I wonder if that's when they bring in Jose Lothario to be a part of that storytelling, because that was also great from what I remember with him training Shawn Michaels and everything. So looking forward to that for sure. The match itself between Bret and Helmsley was just awesome. I mean, there was a time where Helmsley was just really wailing on Bret in the corner.
Yeah.
Helmsley is just, in 1996, he's just an old school seller. A lot of what he was doing sort of reminded me of like a Ric Flair type.
Yes.
Of what he was doing. He's an old school guy. How can you not enjoy that in 1996? A guy that looks like that is an old school type of a seller. I mean, it's just great to watch.
Not to mention, the guy's a newcomer at this point. So,
yeah.
I mean, to do the stuff that he's doing right now, I think gets overlooked a lot of times in modern day.
You can tell he's a student of the game.
Yeah.
For sure. You know, knows the history and was trained well and all that stuff. So
I think him marrying Stephanie kind of, it ruined his image just in the fact that people want to use that as to why he became so big and not the fact that he was a fantastic wrestler.
Yeah, I think he kind of gets that unfair, overrated label on him sometimes.
Yeah.
But I mean, the fact that he married Stephanie is the reason that gave him to book himself so well.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, some of that is fair, but yeah, he's a great wrestler for sure. The sharpshooter after catching him off the top rope is just classic Bret Hart. That is, Bret Hart is the type of guy, and Vince mentions it, I think, during this match, where you got to watch, you know, because Bret's that type of guy who's going to play possum. He's just going to get you when you're not expecting it, because a lot of these wins that Bret Hart gets are from, you know, a sneaky sharpshooter like this or a roll up out of nowhere, that type of stuff. So I loved it. I loved this match. I loved that first match between Shawn Michaels and 1-2-3 Kid, and I thought both of them really served their purpose tonight.
Yeah, absolutely agreed. And as you know, getting back to the little conversation about Hunter Hearst Helmsley here, I forget who it was recently that I was listening to that was talking about him. Whenever you look back at the Attitude Era and, you know, immediately following it, the huge success of the WWF and then E, you know, the conversation is always Stone Cold Steve Austin, The Rock, Mankind, to a lesser extent The Undertaker. But how many of those matches included Triple H? And we just don't remember it because he's not Stone Cold or The Rock. But without Triple H being such a great heel and working in so many matches during that time, it's hard to say that we would have had the same enjoyment of all of that without him. He's kind of an unsung hero of that time. He gets drowned out by the Rocks and the Austins, but he propped up a lot of matches and a lot of stories over that course of time. It's worth remembering.
One thing that I'm not sure it actually gets lost, because DX certainly gets its fair share of praise for the Attitude Era, but let's not forget he was one of the leading voices of DX. I mean, DX, Stone Cold and The Rock were enormous during the Attitude Era, but can you think back to how many people did the suck it move back in high school? Yeah. That was more famous than anything Stone Cold did. Everyone fucking knew suck it. I mean, it was just iconic.
You're right. But I think the distinction for me is whenever I think back to DX, I think of their shenanigans. I think of driving the tank to Turner Broadcasting. I think of that. I don't think of matches. It was, the New Age Outlaws doing we can all recite that one word for word.
Sure.
I guess what you're saying is like his abilities as a wrestler sort of gets lost in a lot of the other stuff. Yeah.
Thank you. That's extremely well put. That is what I was going for. I just couldn't spit it out, kind of like Kilt earlier. The other thing that I wanted to add on to this, and Joe, you touched on it also, the way that these two matches complemented each other and kept the story going. Getting towards that whole Iron Man angle, both matches, and this is something that we rarely see, both matches, as soon as the finisher was hit or as soon as the opportunity was there was an immediate pin. There wasn't fucking around, there wasn't trying to play to the crowd, there wasn't holding up the too sweet sign, there wasn't looking around to make sure the fucking Undertaker wasn't about to come up out of the ring, or it was sweet chin music, fast dash, scramble into the pin to get the win. It was a reversal from a drop kick straight into the sharpshooter, locking it in for the win, showing that both of these guys are not fucking around and that they will rack up the pinfalls or submissions or what have you for their 60 minutes. Good stuff all around. What's not good stuff, though, is the way that we're going to end our episode of Raw tonight. Once again, we start this with a graphic on the screen. The following satire is intended to entertain and inform. The quotes contained herein are actual quotes by the man who could control 50% of America's cable systems, Ted Turner.
Wah.
Such a bitch. My goodness. This segment is going to be TV trivia with Billionaire Ted, the man who's trying to put the WWF out of business. They're actually calling him that now on WWF TV. And I have no idea who the hell this guy playing the host is of TV trivia, but there's just a stereotypically ditzy woman playing opposite of Ted, and it was just already just stupid as hell. What this will all amount to is what was quoted earlier. Sexist and racist quotes being attributed to Ted Turner. I didn't fact check this. There's no way in hell I'm going to devote that much energy to this stupid bullshit, so I'm going to assume they're true considering they were saying it's true. Otherwise, they probably would have gotten sued for that specifically and not the other things that they were sued for. At one point, with the quote that references beheading women as a cheaper kind of divorce, Billionaire Ted guesses that his friend OJ said that. But of course, it's another Ted Turner quote that they're talking about. There are more references to some kind of story involving women. When they ask where the huckster is, they show the huckster handcuffed to the top turnbuckle, saying that he got cuffed there by a woman. And as the Nacho Man is there making comments in the background, one of the women close by knocks him out with a lady's shoe. I really wish I knew what the hell the story was behind that, because for me personally, it's like one of the only entertaining things about any of this is this common theme of women's shoes. But anyway, that's it. That's how we end this episode of Raw. We fade to black on that. Joe, I want to start with you first, just so that I can ask, did you try to watch this week's installment of Billionaire Ted, or was it time to scoop the litter box?
No, I watched it. It's Larry Fling that I will no longer watch.
Okay. Gotcha.
Not that this is much better, but so I've made a career out of auditing, internal audit, quality control. I consider myself to be pretty skilled in quality control. And if I'm working for Peacock, I'm removing this entire piece because whether Ted Turner said these things or not, there are some pretty bad things being said here. And if you're going to remove other content for those reasons, then there's no reason why this should not also be removed. And the other thing that I thought was kind of ironic was Billionaire Ted says, wait till I get my hands on Time Warner. And it's funny because that was ultimately the demise of WCW when Time Warner came in and basically were pressing their thumb down on WCW and pretty much killed it. So pretty funny.
My thoughts on this TV trivia segment is it felt like a shit-slinging political ad is what it felt like to me. because we're just talking about how he's racist, and let's show a quote about how he's going to chop off the head of his ex-wife. And like you said, I wasn't going to waste my time actually looking up if Ted Turner said any of this stuff, but it felt like a shitty political ad. Thanks, Vince. Now we got political ads on Raw.
Yeah, there's not much to add to that. It was stupid and disgusting, as usual. Complete waste of time. But again, I would like to know what the deal with the women's shoe is, because it's a common theme. It's every week the women's shoes are getting brought up. All right, well, as I said, that ends our episode of Raw, so let's take it on over now to highlights and lowlights. Joe, why don't you go first?
The highlight for me was the first match and the last, but I don't want to skip over. We only had 3 matches, and I don't want to skip over the debut of JBL because I thought that was entertaining as well. So all in all, I loved all the matches that took place on this episode, and I would recommend anyone who is a fan of the Iron Man match to watch this episode of Raw because it was great storytelling. As far as a low light, I really hate to beat a dead horse here, but the Billionaire Ted stuff is just out of control. I cannot believe this is like the 10th week in a row.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not exaggerating. And like, come on, at some point it has to stop, right?
You'd hope. My highlight, and I guess it was your secondary highlight, Joe, I'm going with the Bret Hart Triple H match. The first match was great too. It was kind of tough to pick from, but this final match between Bret Hart and Triple H, I just felt like is the type of match you'd show to someone if you said, hey, here's what 2 great wrestlers can do in just your average everyday match. And this was a knockout of the park as far as I'm concerned. So that was my highlight. And low light, last week I tried to veer away from it the best I could. But this week we had a pretty strong Raw with a lot of good matches. So it's got to be the Billionaire Ted with the TV trivia. It was shit yet again. And they just keep on shitting on us week in and week out.
Well, guys, I am going to diverge a little bit on this one. My highlight is going to be the Shawn Micheals 1-2-3 Kid match. Awesome match. Excellent storytelling there. And my low light is going to be what kept the Bret Hart Triple H match, or Hunter Hearst Helmsley, excuse me. It's what kept that match from being the highlight, which is that over-the-shoulder view over Shawn Micheals' shoulder. It ruined too many spots for me. It distracted me way too often, and I feel like if we hadn't have had that, then I would be a lot more up on the match than I was. That's not to say that is not a criticism of the match. It's more a criticism of the production surrounding it, but because they chose to do that, it bumped it down a notch for me, so that's where we are. Joseph, do you have any contemporary wrestling news from on and around March 4th, 1996 for us?
Yes, direct from the Wrestling Observer. I reported, I believe it was last week, that Scott Hall had given his notice, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And also that Scott Hall was suspended for 6 weeks, which was also reported last week. It's being reported that Scott Hall tested positive for marijuana, and that is why he is being suspended for 6 weeks. Just so happens to be on the day that he gave his notice. When asked about the timing of the positive test coming back the same day that Scott Hall gave his notice, Vince McMahon said, "There's nothing I can do about that coincidence."
Classic answer.
Damn dirty pothead.
Speaking of Scott Hall leaving, Kevin Nash has officially given his notice that he will be leaving the WWF to accept an offer from WCW in a phone call to Vince McMahon on March 5th. Kevin Nash will continue to work with the WWF through June 6th, which we know to not be quite true, but pretty close. Wrestlemania 12 will be held to 6 matches on pay-per-view because of the Iron Man match. The remaining 5 matches are Undertaker versus Diesel, Ultimate Warrior versus Hunter Hearst Helmsley, Yokozuna, Jake Roberts, and Ahmed Johnson versus Vader, Owen Hart and British Bulldog.
That's going to be the highlight, surely.
Surely it will be. Goldust versus Roddy Piper, and Savio Vega versus the Ringmaster.
Whoa.
In addition, the finals of the WWF Tag Team title match will be on the pre-show, as mentioned before. And guess what, guys? We're getting another match on the pre-show as well. You ready?
I think I know what it is.
The Huckster versus the Nacho Man in a comedy match.
Well, I'm glad it's the pre-show.
Yeah.
On the same card as the Tag Team Championship match.
So I just want to bring up one thing. The one match between Savio Vega and the Ringmaster, that seems like that's going to be the beginning of many matches that we'll see with Savio Vega and Stone Cold, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and also Dave Meltzer is reporting this as the Ringmaster, but I do think he changes over to Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania or just before, so we're very close to that. You know what, speaking of WrestleMania, is there anything that feels different about this WrestleMania, guys, compared to especially last year?
Just speaking for me, I have noticed that the whole road to WrestleMania is kind of non-existent. They're not doing the WrestleMania reports.
Yeah.
And we're 3 weeks out from WrestleMania, and aside from the conversational aspect of it, there hasn't been, the petting zoo segments and all that shit getting us geared up for it.
That's a good observation. Another thing noted here that I'm pointing to is that there will be no celebrities hyped for the event.
Oh.
No Nikki Turturro, yeah.
The savior.
I mean, last year we just had a plethora of celebrities and
Pamela Anderson, Jenny McCarthy.
Even WrestleMania 10 had a few that they were really, really plugging hard, but this year doesn't seem to be any. There might be some in attendance, but they're not hyping it up. I talked about Scott Hall and Kevin Nash earlier, and there is already talk going around that WWF is trying to secure all trademarks and copyrights around Razor Ramon and Diesel so that those images cannot be portrayed on WCW television. And it's pretty funny, like for Razor Ramon, they were taking it down to the haircut, the toothpick, like literally everything about Razor Ramon and Diesel. The black glove, it's just everything. It's crazy. Little update on Jeff Jarrett. He is apparently still in great pain due to an inflamed vertebrae in his back. He is not expected to return for at least 6 more weeks.
God damn.
The actual spine buster.
Yeah.
Yes. It's funny. It's like he was punished like twice. Like, Jeff, we're going to have you work with Ahmed. He needs some help. We need some help, getting him over and making him look like a real worker. And then he breaks his back.
I wonder if Vince slipped him Ahmed an extra 20 saying, you know what?
Yeah.
Lay that spine buster on a little extra hard.
Yeah. So unfortunately, the return of Jeff Jarrett has not been all that exciting due to that unfortunate injury. And that is all.
All right. Thank you, Joseph. It's illuminating as always. And that's it, folks. We are done with this one. I want to thank you again for joining us here on our 100th episode. If you like what we're doing here and want to connect with us, you can email us at WRASSLINRAW. Just add @gmail.com to the end of that to submit questions or comments. Check us out on social media and on every podcast subscription platform. While you're there, don't forget to follow and subscribe to get every episode of Wrasslin Raw coming to you every week. Give us a 5-star review and let your friends know how much cooler they would be if they became Rawheads like you and me. Next week on Wrasslin Raw, we're going to take a look at the Raw that aired on March 11th, 1996, with matches featuring the Godwins. And Ryan, you'll be happy to hear more than one jobber going into that.
Nice.
One of which is named Vin Greer.
Ooh.
But that is not the only jobber option we will have in front of us. So keep that in mind. I'm looking forward to a Jobber of the Week segment next week. So, for Joe and Ryan, I'm Jason, and this has been Wrasslin Raw.